Webheads, welcome to another episode of SpiderMan Weekly. Twip. That's right, guys. The weekly video series where I cover all the Spidey books that come out for the comic book week. I'm Mike Spiderslayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. Today, guys, not only do we have one, but two, but three, but we actually have four Spidey books, and we're going to get to that right now. So the first book we're going to be talking about today is the main Amazing Spider-Man title. This is issue 19. Now, this was not my favorite Spider book released this week, but we will talk about that later. This book was actually a good palate cleanser, you know, getting away from the dark web and all that nonsense that was attached to it. And it's kind of like a filler, a bridge between two major stories. Zeb Wells doesn't even write this book. This one is written by Joe Kelly, and our guest artist is Terry Dotson, and at times the artwork is absolutely gorgeous. Like, I love these pinup pages, and then at other times it just felt like the work was a little bit incomplete. So like in this panel, for instance, we get to see like there's characters that like don't have faces, right? And we see that quite a bit in this comic book, but the main characters look pretty good, and I love the way their facial expressions were, the body language and all that different type of stuff. I mean, here's another example of that artwork. But I had mixed feelings. I've seen better Terry Dotson artwork in the past. It started off with Felicia and Peter teaming up, doing, you know, their everyday battles or burglaries and stuff like that, stopping the bad guys. And Felicia's like, you know what? Hey, Spider, why don't we go out, take a break for a weekend? The city's gonna live without you. And he's like, I don't know, man. Great power comes great responsibility. And she's like, come on. And so after some convincing, they're gonna go to this like ski lodge, right? There were some really good comical moments here. In fact, there was Aunt May telling Peter to make sure he brings his raincoat. That was hilarious. I found that so funny. And what I like about this interaction between these two characters, and why I actually like Felicia better with Peter, or Peter with Felicia, than Mary Jane, is because I feel like Felicia brings out that little bit of that bad boy in Peter Parker, kind of pushes him over the edge, right? That's what I like about their relationship with each other. She drives with the top down in like sub-0 degree temperatures, and he's just like, dude, what's going on? Like, are you crazy? You know? And she just like pushes him over the edge. So that was cool. There was other really great interactions in this comic book when you find out that Paul and MJ are actually at the same ski resort lodge. They actually had the same online coupon, and things just got really awkward. And you see that Peter obviously still has feelings for MJ, or some type of feeling. And being that Felicia was there, just the whole thing seemed awkward, right? So from there on out, though, I felt like the comic wound up dropping down for me. We get the White Rabbit that appears, and there's this fake Sinister Six that is playing around with these weapons, and then eventually they're going to sell them. They're going to like rent them out, and then eventually they're going to sell them to Tombstone and things like that. Well, one of their own winds up getting mysteriously murdered, and they feel like, okay, well, now no one can leave this building because we don't want anyone spilling the beans of what's going on with this weapons and all this other stuff. I don't know. I didn't like the end of the comic book, and I felt like, wow, this was a really good story with these two being in this comic book out of just a weekend getaway, and it wound up going into some weird adventure. So I don't know. It was okay at the end. I really love the beginning and the middle of this comic book more than the end. So obviously, we're always going to continue Spider-Man, but I wished it kind of fit the tone all the way through the book instead of some off-the-wall, second-rate Sinister Six people selling weapons to Tombstone. That was just weird for me. The next book, which has been really nice surprise and one of the bright lights of the dark web, or to spin out of the Amazing Spider-Man comic books, is actually the Gold Goblin series written by Christopher Cantwell. This is Norman Osborn's redemption story, basically. He obviously feels great guilt, which he hasn't felt in forever because he's always been the Green Goblin and has committed mass murders, and he doesn't even care. Well, now that he's got his sins taken away from the Queen Goblin, he feels that guilt, and he's trying to help society. He's trying to rescue people, and then in the last issue of this, you wind up seeing him rescue Jack-o'-lantern. And he feels like, you know what, with Jack-o'-lantern, he's kind of turning the corner, trying to help people reform themselves as well. And it was pretty cool. And we get to see a really awesome moment here between Peter Parker and Norman Osborn, as Norman has a heart-to-heart with Peter and says, I know you'll never trust me. I know you think I'm a joke. But he's like, when you come to Oscorp, you have free reign. You get to do whatever you want to do. He's like, you don't even have to talk to me if you don't want to. So I love how this book kind of dives deeper into their relationship, where other people that would read just Amazing Spider-Man would say, how the heck can Peter and Norman just get along like this, and how can he work? We can see in this comic book that there's trust issues. I really appreciated that part of the story. Then we get to see this doctor who is trying to have some kind of therapy sessions with Jack-o'-lantern, which is Owen. And you think everything is actually going fine. And then all of a sudden, Norman Osborn's doing this patrol around the park and whatnot, and, you know, helping normal citizens. And then the next thing you see is Jack-o'-lantern makes his appearance in the comic book, and it looks like he's going to blow up people. And then he has a piece of the Queen Goblin's mace, and you're like, oh my god, what's he going to do? And he winds up blowing up all these people in this freaking park, and Norman Osborn, he's beside himself, and he's getting framed for this actual murder, and he just kind of runs away. And little do we know that in this comic book, you see that the Queen Goblin is behind all this. She was that fake therapist all along, manipulating Jack-o'-lantern's mind. So what this comic actually is it's this big psychological thriller. I would love to see this like in a type of movie or TV show on all the hallucinations that maybe Owen was going through and Norman Osborn is going through when it comes to the death of Gwen Stacy, how he has enormous guilt with that. And at the end of the issue, you wind up seeing the Queen Goblin kidnapping Norman Osborn, and you get to see her transforming. Oh, it's so dark and it's so psychological. I love this comic book. This book is fantastic. Never thought I would like this as much as I thought I would, because this is just not like a redemption cheesy story. Oh, I'm a good guy, I'm going to rescue people. We get to see that physical struggle that Norman is going through. So at the end of the day, you can appreciate this book as a Norman fan, a Green Goblin fan, as it's not so easy for Norman Osborn. Am I right? Like, it's not like, oh, all of a sudden I'm going to put on this costume and I'm going to just be this good guy. We can see the struggles that he's going through. So great job. My hat's off to Christopher Cantwell. Okay, guys. A book that totally surprised me this week was Red Goblin issue 1, another fantastic Goblin story. I went in depth of this comic book in my Worthy Ones video, so I will leave that video at the end of this one so you can click on that and see all the #1 books that I read this week. But Red Goblin issue 1 was a story about Normie Osborn becoming the Red Goblin once again. Now, if you read the old Amazing Spider-Man run back when Dan Slott wrote it, we saw that Normie Osborn had a piece of the symbiote from his grandfather, right? That symbiote disappeared. Recently, in the pages of the Dark Web Venom, we saw Dylan Brock wind up getting a piece of Bedlam, who is the futuristic version of Eddie Brock, and gives it to Normie Osborn to help him battle his father, which makes him become the Red Goblin again, aka named Rascal. Now, the great thing about this comic book is you have a 10-year-old boy who's in possession of a symbiote, and he has to control and raise the symbiote on his own. So a 10-year-old mind is raising a brand new baby symbiote. So the symbiote is going to act like a baby as well. And seeing the interaction between these two characters is priceless in this comic book. It's like if you were a little kid and you found a lost puppy in the street and you took it home and you tried to hide it from your parents, that's what Normie Osborn is actually doing in this comic, and we get to see these two interact with each other at home. It's just like the way he talks like a little kid, and it was a great comic book. I love the artwork in this book. Normie's kind of a little bit of an asshole to his mom. He feels like his mom is privileged because she has all this money from Norman Osborn. Just an overall great story. And again, if you read the pages of Amazing Spider-Man back in the day, when Dan Slott wrote it, a lot of stuff takes place from those story threads. There's the Goblin Gang, there's the Goblin King, there's all that different stuff in here. So at the end of the day, if you were on the fence and you thought this was going to be a cheesy story, Red Goblin, just, I don't even care, you're mistaken. You're going to be mistaken. So I'm definitely saying pick this bad boy up. Between Gold Goblin and Red Goblin, these are great books, guys. And this has a lot of story threads going on in here with Norman Osborn also. So great stuff. Pick it up. Okay, so here's one of the best Spider books of the week, in my opinion, and it's not even a Spider book, but it's Joe Fixit. This is issue 2. It's got Spider-Man on the cover. Does it count, right? Spider-Man is in the entire book. He's more of the focal point in this comic book than really Joe Fixit is. Spider-Man has to go against Joe Fixit in this book. So I was like, why not throw this in Spider-Man Weekly? Because Peter David writes it. He knows how to write characters in the classic version. So if you don't like any of the new iterations of these characters, then pick this book up. You're going to really enjoy it. All this takes place in Las Vegas. You get to see Spider-Man chilling out in Las Vegas because Joe Fixit told him he can hang out there. And Joe Fixit just is badass. He's just like the security of this casino for this mob boss or whatnot. And Joe Fixit gets to have anything that he actually wants. He gets to hang out with the girls. Joe Fixit sits there and invites Spider-Man to the penthouse suite or whatnot. He's like, enjoy yourself. Have a good time, and Spider-Man's like, no, I don't think I'm going to, Joe Fixit. I'm going to take the stairs, go downstairs, and gamble. It was so hilarious, right? Meanwhile, based off of what happens in the first issue, right, Kingpin got beat by Joe Fixit because Kingpin wants to be in control of this casino, but he has to overtake Joe Fixit. So he's like, he got his ass beat, and now he's like, okay, what am I going to do to overtake this casino? So he winds up getting this nerve agent that can maybe overtake Spider-Man or Hulk or whatever the case may be. He goes there. We get to see Kingpin make this offer to Joe Fixit, while they're gambling, while they're playing blackjack with each other. And Joe Fixit's like, no, I'm not going to take this deal with you. And he basically gets a drink thrown at him, and Kingpin's like, okay, well, that's fine. Now you're going to get this nerve agent, and you're going to be into this, you're going to go into this uncontrollable rage, and then all of a sudden you see Joe Fixit just destroy the whole entire casino, and you get to see Spider-Man battle Kingpin and, again, Joe Fixit in the comic book. So well done. Absolutely awesome. It's just a big brawl. Kind of a simplistic story, but if you love classic Marvel characters like Kingpin, Spider-Man, Joe Fixit back in the day, you're going to love this book. I love how Joe Fixit is just hanging out with those women. He even comes out of the shower with another one, and him gambling and doing all that stuff. A+ in my opinion. One of the best books of the week overall. Definitely recommend it. Okay, so if I had to rank these books from number 4 all the way to number 1, here's what we get. The Amazing Spider-Man issue 19 comes in at that number 4 spot. Unfortunately, this book just misses the mark by the time we get to the middle of the story and loses its steam. It's unfortunate that the main Spider-Man title does not hit that top spot every single time it comes out. It should. It's a flagship book. It was okay story, but I was hoping for something better. Coming in at that number 3 spot, and it's hard to determine these 1 through 3, was the Gold Goblin issue number 4. It's a solid story with a psychological thriller attached to it, and it's unfortunate what's going on with Norman Osborn, and I want to know, will he actually become the Green Goblin once again? But this is definitely a recommend. If there's anything that came out of the dark web that was really good, it's kind of this Gold Goblin art. Then number 2 goes to Red Goblin. This is issue 1. If you want to talk about the top Spider-Man book, technically from the Spider-Man family, this would be it. This surprised me at all levels with great artwork and solid character growth when it came to Normie Osborn, character interactions with his parents and his symbiote Rascal, and I can't wait to see where the story goes from here. But my favorite, I guess, non-Spider-Man book, but with Spider-Man book in it, went to Joe Fixit issue 2, just because this is a classic feel of a comic book. For old school readers like me, this is the Spider-Man that you remember. This is like the Hulk that you remember. This is the character interactions that you like. These big bad battles between the good versus the evil, not an overly complex plot. Funny storytelling at the same time. It just has all elements. I love the pacing of it. So this takes the number 1 spot for the week for me when it comes to these Spider books. So there you guys have it. I want to know all these comments in the below. What do you think of these Spider-Man books this week? I want to see you rank them. And of course, guys, if you love my content, like I said, I'm going to leave you that Worthy Ones video where I talk about all the new number 1 comic books I read this week. And of course, guys, as always, keep buying, keep collecting. We always remember, read those comics. Guys, I'll see you real soon. Bye.